But when I went in to see her and I sat right down, she said, "How are you doing?" I said, "I'm struggling a little bit." I said, "And I don't think I have AMD." And she said, "You don't?" She said, "What do you think you have?" And I said, "I think I have Stargardt's." I said, "Don't get mad," but I
Mm.
plugged it into AI because the medical people hate that. And she just chuckled and she's like, "You're right, you do. Have a seat." And it was one of these that when the second that she confirmed it for me, my immediate reaction my immediate reaction was, "Well, yeah, I'm right." Because I do love being right. And I was relieved.
You're listening to Inside Out, a podcast about living well with low vision. Maybe you're feeling confused, scared, isolated, or disheartened about a recent vision loss diagnosis. Or maybe you've been managing your vision loss for a while, and now you want to hear from others about how to continue growing and thriving. Inside Out is your supportive space to find healthy and impactful tools to build and maintain a truly rich and gratifying life with low or no vision. I'm Matthew Reeves. I'm a legally blind psychotherapist and rehabilitation counselor. I specialize in helping people adjust to disability through my practice, Integral Mental Health Services in Atlanta, Georgia. I'm really glad you're listening. Please subscribe so you don't miss an episode, and let others in the low vision community know about the podcast so the word can spread to those who might find it helpful. And now, on with today's discussion. My guest today is Dawn McAvoy. Dawn lives with Stargardt's disease, which happens to be the same inherited retinal condition that I have. Unlike myself, though, Dawn was diagnosed much later in life, leading to a very different kind of adjustment process than mine. Let's get right into my conversation with her. All right, Dawn, thanks so much for being here today. When I heard your story, I thought it was really compelling, and I thought this audience might get a lot out of hearing it. That story from that initial diagnosis and symptoms up through a career transition and education and just all the adjustments you've made to live well with low vision. So thanks for being here. Thanks for sharing your story. And I'll let you just launch right into it. What does your story sound like?
Yeah, so thanks for having me. And I will say that everyone that I've spoken to who has low vision or some sort of, oh, I hate the word handicap, but something that they've had to overcome to deal with, like just 1,000 compelling stories out there. So, and something to learn from every single one. For me, age-related macular degeneration has run in my mother's side of the family. It's been a known thing. My great-grandmother was blind, but not really blind. So we kind of thought of her as the scary old lady who would grab your arm when you were a little kid and pull you close and look at you like this out of the side of her eye to say hi. And we just thought it was very strange because we were young kids. And I honestly think she had Stargardt's. Like flash forward,
Ah,
I genuinely believe that she had Stargardt's disease. So with this history, at 46, I went to an optometrist for just regular vision. I have a prescription for distance and I needed to upgrade it. And my poor optometrist, he was young, early in his career, and he kind of freaked out a little bit. And I asked, he was like, "Oh, I can't believe I'm seeing this. I can't believe I'm seeing this." I was like, "Okay, well, talk to me. What are you seeing?" And he said, I see these drops. I see what's called drusen. And I was like, "Okay, well, what does that mean?" And he asked, he said, you said you have a history of AMD in your family." I said, "I do." And he's like, "Well," he said, "it doesn't make any sense because you're only 46. He said, "But that's what I'm seeing." But that triggered the path to me really kind of diving in. And I was fortunate enough to be working at the time with a woman who had a good friend who worked in the low vision center at the University of Toronto. And she said, "Let me connect you with my friend." And that started what turned out to be an 8-year journey of figuring out exactly what was wrong with me. And I'm going to say
right.
wrong in air quotations for the audio portion of this, because there's nothing wrong with me. I'm just a little different. Um, Long story short,
But for clarity, for 46 years, you had no symptoms, other than typical like
In
optical
retro
nearsightedness or farsightedness, that sort of
in
thing.
retrospect, I believe I had some symptoms, but things that didn't make sense at the time, but weren't big enough for me to really think about. So in my
Gotcha.
20s, for example, in my mid 20s, my parents bought a new house. I flew in, I was living in Colorado at the time, flew in late at night and drove with them out to Eastern North Carolina, which is very dark and very rural, and never had a problem driving at night. And all of a sudden started seeing like double vision, and the
Mm,
oncoming lights were really bothersome to the extent that I had to pull over and ask my mother to drive.
wow.
Never thought about, just thought that it was an anomaly. And then I think I just adjusted and
Mm.
got to the point where it's like, okay, well, I'll just be really careful when I'm driving at night. Um, didn't really look into it.
How'd that go?
It really wasn't bad. And I drove at night. I just made sure that I always had my distance prescription, which made it better. And I was just careful. Um,
Hmm.
we lived in the middle of nowhere at the time. I was in grad school. And so it was just, you just kind of rolled with it and you didn't really think much of it. I think you just adjust. I think you adjust
Right.
unconsciously, you adjust. And
You were
so,
rolling with something you weren't even aware of at the time.
exactly, because you don't know it's different. You don't know that that's not normal.
Yeah.
And that's another part of this. So, flash forward 46, I get this diagnosis of AMD and I'm like, okay, this is ridiculous. Ridiculous in that much younger than anyone else in my family. And also,
Mhm.
starting on the AREDs and the protocols and all of this, and just becoming very, very hyper aware of things. And I remember saying to my mother when I first got my diagnosis that the minute I lost my driver's license, I was going to get a dog. And my mother, who
Okay.
has AMD, said, "You're going to be just fine. You're not going to lose your vision. You're going to be fine. You're going to be like me. You're going to be like your grandma." Not my great grandmother, my grandma, who had
Okay.
AMD, but was fine. And I don't know. I think I just always kind of knew in the back of my mind that maybe this was a little different. And I started having
Mm.
symptoms that I didn't think too much of, but it was when I got to the point, and all the while, so I'm in Canada, and the healthcare system here is a little different. So U of T, University of Toronto, their low vision center connected me to a low vision specialist who I ended up finally getting in touch with a retinologist, and I would go in for annual screenings to see everything's fine, everything's fine, everything's fine, till it's not fine.
Mm.
And I started noticing that I needed cheaters. I never had a vision, so I had a problem with distance, but I never had a problem with up close, with screens or reading my iPhone or anything like that. And all of a sudden, it got like one day, it was like a switch where I really couldn't see
Wow.
it. And I started using cheaters, and I thought I was just getting old.
Cheaters meaning reading glasses, just
Yeah,
in case
exactly.
yeah,
Cheaters
okay.
reading.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and I just thought I was getting old because I know so many people who are like, oh, I'm 55 now. So I was in my late 40s, early 50s, and I was like, oh yeah, this is just what happens. Meanwhile, I
Right.
continue to go it was every 2 years for a screening, then it was every year. And I called for an emergency appointment one day because I had what I call fireworks, where I literally
Okay.
saw like just shooting stars. It was like, it was beautiful, but also terrifying.
Mm.
It was a Sunday, and I called the doctor's office, the retinology department, for an emergency consult because I was afraid that if I had AMD, which is what I thought I was afraid I had breakthrough bleeding and that I needed to get it
Mm.
cauterized. And went in, and it was an intern. She was lovely. I got authorized for an emergency appointment. She ran the scans and she said she didn't see any bleeding. And I was like, well, obviously something is wrong. This was big enough for me to go, oh, wait, that's not right. And
Right.
it continued, the flashing continued. And then what I call a little bit of the glitter where you get the sparkles. Um, and I called for an appointment. And again, the healthcare system's a little differently. So she got me in as quickly as she could, but it was a few weeks. And
Mm.
that's when, in the meantime, I had been sent for genetic testing. The ministry here approved me for genetic testing, but it takes a long time to get those results back.
Okay. Yeah.
So during this time, I'm on the phone, I get my results back, and I meet with the genetic counselor who's walking me through the results. I have a pathogenic gene, which she says, oh, but don't worry, because it's only on one side. And I was like, okay, great. I'm good. Whatever's going on, we're going to get it sorted out. And my doctor, so it's a little confusing, but the appointment, so during the appointment where my genetic results came back, I met with her, the emergency situation. I had a meeting with her before those results came back. And she was like, okay, something is going on. I'm not sure. But let's wait for the results. They'll be coming through soon, yada, yada, yada. So called again for another emergency appointment. Like it got to the point where this, and I'm talking to my mother and I'm explaining what's going on. And she's like, that's so weird. I don't have that. Like, you don't have that. I love my mother dearly. But she's like, that's not how it is. It's like this. And I was like, no, mine is like this. Colors were starting to bother me. I'm in marketing, so color is very important. And I was starting to lose the differentiation more in shades than actual colors. And then what I call the glitter eyes started. Like now it's just permanent where I have glitter all the time. And I call it glitter eyes because I refuse to give it a name that is scientific or medical or something that is not lovely. And glitter sounds rather lovely to me.
Glitter sounds lovely.
It does.
Yeah.
So when I finally got the actual diagnosis, at this point, like I've been making adjustments at work, but privately. And adjustments meaning now I need everything on the big monitor, not the small monitor, and I'm not quite sure why. And I'm carrying 17 different pairs of cheaters in various prescriptions in case I lose one. Started carrying a magnifying glass. And like I'm muddling along. I'm okay, but I fundamentally know something is off. And
so you've been told at this point that you've got genetic data that says something's wrong, but it's not clear what.
Right. And the genetic counselor that I met with said, oh, but it's only on one side. So like it's nothing. It's nothing to worry about. Well, because when you see a report that says one of your genes is pathogenic, of course you're like, right, that's not good. So in between all of this, I just get super curious and I plug my results into Claude AI. I had the pathogenic gene, 2 variants of suspicion, and 1 unknown. So 4 different strings of information that I just plug. I don't pull up my whole report up there because that feels very personal and private. But I pull out those pieces and plug it into AI and say, okay, what could this be? And it spit out 4 or 5 different things that it could be. And one of them was Stargardt's. And I literally went down the list of things that it could be and started researching. And then I asked AI, I said, okay, for this one, what are the symptoms? For this one, what are the symptoms? And when I ran the ones for Stargardt's with the symptoms, I was like, that's it. That's what I have.
So you had this experience where at least 2 medical professionals are expressing awe or dismay or like the people who are supposed to know what's going on and support you and give you the information, that's not happening to the extent that you turned to AI to get answers.
Yeah.
What was that like for you to be kind of on your own in that way?
This is going to sound really awful. And I don't mean it as awful as it sounds, but I was just kind of like, yeah, okay. Like,
c'est la vie.
Yeah, sort of. Like the first optometrist, I explained it away as, oh, he's so young. Like but to be fair, he's the one that like flagged it and actually got me doing something about it. My retinologist, I don't want to say anything bad about her because I think she's lovely. I also think she's incredibly overworked. She's got a huge practice. And I know that because when I've called to say, hey, I need to see you, like, they'll get me in as quickly as they can, but as quickly as they can isn't next week. So
yeah, that's a theme I'm noticing when I talk to folks is that it's rarely when we encounter problems with services, it's rarely the people we're working with aren't talented or caring or compassionate or skilled. It's usually that they're working within a system that is strained. So yeah, that sounds like that's the case here too.
Yeah. And my doctor, I will say she's compassionate, but she's compassionate in her own way. She is very matter of fact, very matter of fact. And I have to say, I respond well to that I know that
Mm.
not everyone does. I just like, I think probably given my background business wise and dealing with private equity investors and people like that, you just learn that, that's how some people are. But when I went in to see her and I sat right down, she said, "How are you doing?" I said, "I'm struggling a little bit." I said, "And I don't think I have AMD." And she said, "You don't?" She said, "What do you think you have?" And I said, "I think I have Stargardt's." I said, "Don't get mad," but I
Mm.
plugged it into AI because the medical people hate that. And she just chuckled and she's like, "You're right, you do. Have a seat." And it was one of these that when the second that she confirmed it for me, my immediate reaction, my immediate reaction was, "Well, yeah, I'm right." Because I do love being right. And I was relieved.
That kind of counterbalanced the life-changing diagnosis.
I don't think
It's like, at least I get to be right.
it didn't sink in that it was life changing. It really didn't. It didn't sink in. That came later. I think
Okay.
I was happy that I was right, and I was so relieved to finally have an answer and to know that,
Mm.
okay, this isn't AMD. All of this stuff I've been going through, it makes perfect sense. I'm not crazy. It was that. And it wasn't until,
Yeah.
also in this appointment, she said, "I'm really sorry, but I have to write a letter to the Ministry of Transportation. Basically, we're
Right.
we're suspending your license."
Right.
And even that, I had gotten to the point where driving was so uncomfortable and painful. And I am somebody, I loved to drive. I love the independence. I love the freedom. I would hop in the car. I live in Canada. My parents are in North Carolina. I would hop in the car and drive down to North Carolina 2, 3 times a year and not think anything of
Wow.
it. But the last trip that I did, I was so white knuckled and stressed out that I was like, no. When she said that, I was like, I don't even care. Like, okay, because I live in a city, I
It
have
sounds like it
everything.
was almost a relief to have it taken away so that it's not your to call anymore.
Yeah, a little bit. And I think it also relieved me of any self-imposed, I recognize it's self-imposed pressure to drive home whenever I felt needed.
Right.
It was
Right.
it was almost like okay, now I can't. So came
Yeah.
home, called my parents because of course they're very worried. They want to know what's going on. And so I'm 50, I was 54 when all of this, I'm 55 now. I was 54 when this happened. Um, and I had to explain to them that I had joined the Rare Disease Club and wasn't really sure what it meant, what was going to learn everything that I could. And no, I love you very much, but please don't come here because I need to sit with this for a little while and I need to figure it out.
So that gets me intrigued, given what I do for a living. What was that like for you, that processing time that you needed? Where were you and where were you getting to? What was that about?
I think it was my personality, my psyche, whatever. My natural tendency with anything is to dive in and learn everything I can. And what I had to
Mm.
be really cognizant of, I had to allow myself to go through the emotional pain. There is a grieving process with any kind of loss. I have lost people very, very close to me. So I've been through that before. This felt different, but very similar. And I call it giving into the suck, where
Mm.
there, especially at first, like I would allow myself, like, okay, today's just gonna be one of those days. I have to give into it. I have to allow myself to feel these feelings, and then I have to pull myself up and figure it out. So I would allow myself, I would time box it and say, okay, you can feel sorry for yourself for 2 hours today, 2 hours whenever you choose it. And then other than that, you're going to start learning what you need to learn. And that's
So
kind of,
you discovered that grief is this thing, is almost a tangible thing that you can engage with and then disengage with to one degree or another at will. Now, I
probably,
know sometimes it
probably
feels
not
like there's not will.
probably not disengage so much as compartmentalize.
Gotcha.
I think I'm pretty sure
Gotcha.
it's compartmentalization, and it's probably just a defense mechanism and a survival tactic. And
Absolutely.
um,
Yeah. I like to say that you can choose to temporarily put your grief on the shelf for a little while
yeah,
and then return to it. And it's a place of honor.
Oh, I
that
like
it doesn't
that.
have to be something you're holding constantly.
Yeah, but you can't leave it there. And
No, you can't leave it
you
there.
can't put it in the top shelf of the closet and close the door and think it's going to go away, because it'll come
Right.
raging back in
Right.
all kinds of awful ways. Um,
Agreed.
so yeah, so then I got to the point where my routine became, okay, in the morning, I'm going to do my thing. I'm going to get up. I'm going to make my coffee. I'm going to go out for a walk. I'm going to think about this a little bit. Maybe I'm crying on my walk. Maybe I hold it until I get
Mhm.
home and then I get in the shower. Now showering, when I get frustrated and I cry, because I cry when I get frustrated, I cry in the shower and just get it out and then move on. So I threw myself into the educational side of it. I have been very, very fortunate. I was diagnosed in January. In February, there was the second annual ever Stargardt's conference hosted by the
Mm.
Carroll Institute for the Blind in Boston.
Right.
I went to that. I was like, I'm gonna go learn about this. I'm gonna go meet other people. Um, Wonderful, wonderful people. And it was a great experience and I learned a lot. I reached
What
out.
did you get from that experience?
I got some people who check in on me on a regular basis and vice versa. I got, there was a very powerful speaker who opened the session for us and talked about her journey and kind of how she's navigated it and what she's doing now. Like she's got bioptics and she's driving. And for me, that was like, oh, okay. Like, I'm not sure I want to drive again, but if I do, there may be an option to do that. And just seeing how other people navigate. It was also really eye-opening. I'm very lucky. I have families very supportive. A cousin went with me, and she's a medical professional. And she was so funny because we were in this amphitheater that was very steep and had a lot of stairs going down. And I would say, were you there by any chance? Did you go?
No, I wasn't. I saw it online, but I wasn't there.
So I would say roughly 30% of the people there that had Stargardt's had canes. And
Mhm.
my cousin was freaking out about them walking the stairs with the canes. And I just started laughing. I was like, this is what they do. Like, they have learned how to do this. When it's my turn, I'm going to learn how to do this. And I'm going to go down the stairs with the cane and it's going to be fine. And so that was my first glimpse into okay, there are going to be other issues to deal with in respect to
Like
navigating.
this is a process that I'm not done with.
Right.
Yeah.
Like there's gonna be a whole managing family piece of it too. And when I say managing family, I mean that in a very kind way.
Sure.
What else did I get out of it? A lovely gentleman by the name of Shane. So I went to this conference I didn't know anything about Stargardt's other than what I'd started researching. Thought I had never met anybody with Stargardt's until I thought about my great grandmother and I said, Matilda. Matilda had it. And I walked they had a reception for those of us that came in from out of town the night before. And I walked into the lounge, not knowing what to expect. And I see this guy and I tell him, he knows this story, so I don't feel bad about sharing it. He's standing off to the side. He's got on a tweed cap and overalls. And he's got his hands in his overalls. He's a farmer. Come to find out he's a farmer. And he just had that blank stare. You know that blank, blind, low vision person stare? And I just looked at him and went, God. Like, oh crap, this is what I'm in for. And I went and introduced myself to him. And he is the most wonderful person. He was diagnosed with this when he was 7. This is the first time he's ever come to an event. What he wanted to get out of it was understanding technology and learning new tools to help him. What I wanted to get out of it is, what am I dealing with? So now we are text buddies. And I help him out with the tech side, and he helps me out with hey, what's going on? This is new to me. What, is this normal? And then,
So you interpreted that blank stare as some sort of fate that you were awaiting, but that wasn't the case at all. He was grabbing the opportunity to grow and learn too. It's like, it was it was a little bit of a surprise there, it sounds like.
Yeah, it was. And then they had medical panelists that talked a lot about the studies and the things that are going on. And it's interesting because when you live with something that there is no treatment for, but there's a lot of work going on around it, it feels like you could easily be stuck in this limbo world of, I'm just going to hope for a cure. I'm just going to hope for a cure. And
Mhm.
for me and where I am in my life, I mean, I'm 55 years old. I would absolutely love a cure. Um, I don't really think it's going to happen in time to help me. I think it will happen in time to help other people. So I don't live with that sense of hope in the same way that young people do or parents of young children do. So I stay tapped into that community, but I get a little stressed out when people hold on to that. Like, to be fair, like everybody has to deal with this in their own
Yeah,
way.
right.
But for me, like that would not be beneficial to me. I'm very pragmatic when it comes to that kind of thing. Like, nope, what can I do today? What can I do now? Not that I don't think there's hope, because I do think there is, and there's so much going on. And every time I go to the doctor, they all say the same thing. If you have to have this is the best time to have it because there's so much happening. And it's true.
Right, right.
So,
At the same time, since you and I have the same condition, we're plugged into the same community, and not everybody who's listening to this has Stargardt's and all sorts of different kinds of vision loss. But in this world, my entire life, it's been, well, we're 10 to 15 years away. 10 to 15 years away. It's always 10 to 15 years away. So I really appreciate what you're saying about how it's it's easy to hang on to that hope of a cure or progress in such a way that it prevents us from doing the grieving work and the adjustment
mm,
work that's necessary. And so finding a balance for that, I think, is a really healthy thing. So I'm so glad you brought that up. I think that's an important topic.
I'm sorry to hear that you've been here in 10 to 15 years for multiple 10 to 15 years.
Yeah. I equate it to when I was young. The school bus driver would always say we're 10 minutes away from the field trip destination, no
Right.
matter how far away we were. We're always 10 minutes away, just to get the kids to stop asking.
Yeah, fair enough. Fair enough. But it was interesting.
So you,
Oh, sorry. I was going to say
I'm sorry. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Go
it
ahead.
was interesting because during that session when they were talking about, and the inevitable question of how close are we to a cure, and they're asking the panelists, the gentleman sitting next to me was actually a representative from a pharmaceutical company. And when they said, I was sitting right next to him. I watched him when they said, "Oh, 5 years," he just shook his head like this, like, no.
Mm,
So,
nope, not happening. Yeah,
yeah,
even if we had something today, it'd be 5 years before it hit the market, I'm sure.
right,
So
right.
yeah, it is. It's an incredibly slow moving process, and there are reasons for that. I'm not an expert in that. I hope to have somebody on the podcast who can talk about why
Oh,
this process is so slow and how clinical trials work and function. But
mm-hmm.
that's not my area of expertise, so I'll stay in my lane. But I do understand that there are reasons why it's so slow. It's not
Right.
just random. Um, so so that's kind of your story of getting connected to the
Mm-hmm.
community and understanding your diagnosis, and that seems like it all happened really quickly. Like
It
for most people
did.
with our particular condition, it's a much slower, more drawn out process starting at a much younger age. For you, it's much more, I guess, consolidated into a shorter period of time.
Yeah.
How did this impact other aspects of your life?
Well, how did it not? Um, it impacts every part of your life. When you start to lose your visual acuity, which are the things you need to read and to see, any like faces. I can see faces, but they're glittery. Like, you're very glittery
Mhm.
right now. Um, it was, I think, the hardest part with learning to navigate. So I did an intake with the Canadian National Institute for the Blind. I reached out to them. So as part of the same appointment where my license got suspended, she said, I'm also going to put you in for services at CNIB. Like, you'll get registered there, and I'm going to connect you to a counselor. She's a psychiatrist. She's like, I'm going to go ahead and just know it's going to take a while before she has availability, but you're on the list, so you'll get in to see her. And I think oh, and the low vision optometrist, which I already had. So I reached back out to
Mhm.
them, but I reached out to the CNIB. They already had me in their system, and they had me in their system because I had volunteered with them. When I first got diagnosed with
Oh,
AMD, I reached out to CNIB because, again, this little spidey sense where I was like, okay, I know that this is something, like something's weird about this. I had reached out to CNIB in an effort to say, all right, let's start leaning into this. Let's learn everything we can. And I got hooked up as a vision mate with an elderly woman who completely blind, like dark. Every once in a while I could see like shadows, but that was it. Um, and I worked with Janet for 7 years, 8 years, and learned her world from her perspective. So when I reached out to the CNIB, they're like, oh, we already have you in the system. But wait, you're a volunteer. And I was like, oh, now I'm on the other side. And my paperwork hadn't come through yet, but they went ahead and fast tracked me and got me in. And I found, and I probably shouldn't share this, so you may have to cut it, but they shared with me, they start asking you questions during your intake. And the question, have you cut yourself? Have you burned yourself? Have you fallen? Can't remember the other one, but then the one question that I say was the magic keys to the kingdom and opening up all of the services, because everyone warned me it's going to be a while before things start kicking in, was the, are you at risk of losing your job? I had started a new job. I had just started a new job. I was very candid with them, very upfront with them. Look, I just got this diagnosis. I thought I was dealing with something where I was going to get shots and it was going to be unpleasant, but it was going to be fine. But that's not what I'm dealing with. I'm dealing with something that has a lot of unknowns. What do you want to do about this? And I realize that that's not everybody is in a situation where they can do that. Not everybody is that forthright, for very practical reasons. But they said, well, let's just see how this goes. And so they've been rather accommodating and like, okay, for example, I can't do spreadsheets anymore because the lines are just like, it just does my head in.
Right. Right.
I outsource that. Like any kind of work like that I can't do, I outsource. So there was a big adjustment at work and trying to navigate. There was a big adjustment with friends, but not real friends, more acquaintance friends.
Okay.
When I shared, so I was a bit of a workaholic, very type A, had a big job, ran marketing for software companies, for ed tech companies. So almost a bit of a professional persona that was still very akin to me. Like I'm genuine and authentic, but professional versus like a little bit separate. So I have a lot of professional colleagues friends, we call them friends. And it was interesting the reactions that I got from them. There are some people who I initially told and have not heard from since. Almost like
You got ghosted.
Kind of, yeah. Almost my interpretation, which I have no idea if this is right, but my interpretation was, oh, you are no longer of value to me because you are less than. I'm sure that's not it. But that's what it feels like. I suspect a lot of people don't know how to deal with it and get very uncomfortable and don't know what to say. So it's easier not to say anything. And then
how did you deal with feeling that way though? I mean, that sense of feeling that other people have devalued you, even that you're recognizing as a part of you that recognizes that may not be the case, but you still felt like it. How did you process that?
I cried in the shower. I cried in the shower and I talked to the people that actually had very different reactions. And I talked to the people. So in this world of professional colleagues, you have the people that eventually become friends. And then you have the people that you think are your friends, but they're not. They're really just professional colleagues. So honestly, this kind of weeded a lot of that out. And I came to learn like, oh, these are the people that are genuine. And it's not that the other people aren't genuine friends, but it was just more of a transactional relationship.
So losing your vision actually provided a bit of clarity on like this relationship is actually based on this thing and that other relationship is different, and it's okay that the different relationships are different.
It is one of the greatest gifts with all of this is that you kind of see people for who they are and relationships for what they are. It is a different kind of vision. And I am incredibly grateful for it. I don't wish any ill will to, the people that have decided that this is not something that they want to talk about or that they want to deal with or that they even acknowledge. The people that ghost me, I have no ill will against them.
Right.
You
But that experience gave you something.
you did. Every experience gives you something.
Yeah.
Every experience gives you something. And I have found that you can feel sorry for yourself and focus on the negative, or you can focus on what am I gaining from this? And I think for me, it's very much that like I'm wired this way anyway, I think. And I have only become more so this way, where it's my first question when I get really frustrated because I can't do something is, what am I meant to learn from this? What's the lesson
Mm.
here for me? And honestly, I think I've learned a lot of lessons about patience. I've learned a lot of lessons about being vulnerable, which I suck at. I am terrible at being vulnerable. I have learned a lot of lessons about being humble.
Mm.
And if I take a step back, like I would say, Stargardt's disease, 0 stars, do not recommend. However, there are some absolute gifts that have come from it. If I had to do it all over, would I want it? No, absolutely not. But there are things that I wouldn't give up that I've learned along the way, which sounds corny, but it's true.
Just because it's corny doesn't mean it's not true. That's right.
Yeah.
Cliches are cliches for a reason.
Yeah. So the other things I had to learn I totally got over any kind of qualms about pulling out a magnifying glass in the grocery store. I don't care. I don't care. I don't care that I look.
But initially you did. Tell me that journey. How did that start?
I was self-conscious. I didn't want people looking at me. I didn't want people. Oh, the worst is when people, okay, this happened the other day. It freaked me out a little bit. Now when I go out, I've got the hat, I've got the wraparound glasses, like I'm fully protected from the UV light, which we have to be very careful of. And I'm armed with, I wear this all the time. I have a magnifier that I wear. I have one in my pocket. I have my reader, I use my iPhone as a reader. And I have my cane. And I'll talk about my cane a little bit. And I have my cane and I'm walking down the sidewalk and I can still see. And this is what is really hard to explain to people. I can still see all of the big things. I can see you. I can see my computer screen. I just can't read. I can't read the words. Your face is a little fuzzy.
Right.
My face is a little fuzzy. My brain fills it in because it knows what I look like.
Right.
So I'm tapping down the sidewalk and I see everything that goes on. I carry the cane because my vision is very differentiated. And so depth perception is a challenge for me. And I move a lot faster with the cane and I feel more comfortable. And sometimes in special lighting situations, I really need it. And a woman walking past me yells out, "God bless you." And I look around like, who is she talking to? And then I'm like, oh crap, she meant me. She meant me.
Mm.
And it freaked me out because I was like, I don't need that. But then on the other hand, like, it's kind of nice. It's kind of lovely. But she wasn't saying it to other people.
Right.
And I don't need pity. I don't need I need accommodation. I don't need special favors so I had a hard time with that one. I'm still processing through.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a big difference between pity and empathy. And it sounds like walking in that moment on the sidewalk, you weren't entirely sure which one you were getting.
Right. Right. And my knee-jerk reaction is, I'm fine. I can do all of the things. I just do them differently. So that one was tough. The cane was also tough. And the cane was tough.
Tell me about your story.
Yeah. So one of the services they offer at CNIB was mobility. She asked if I wanted mobility training and I said no, I didn't need it. And we got on talking about other, like, they're really good. They ask you, like, what do you want to maintain? So I have a reader because one of the things I wanted to maintain was reading my newspaper, really old fashioned that way. And I told her I wanted to get a dog. One of the things that I wanted to learn eventually was the process for getting a dog, because remember back to the story about the minute I can't have my driver's license, I'm getting a dog.
Right.
So she explains to me that the very first step to getting a dog is you have to do the mobility training because the dog replaces the cane. And I just went, okay, let's do it. Sign me up. And so the next week, here comes Natasha, my mobility coach, and she is amazing. She's feisty and fierce and just an amazing woman. And she shows up at my house and we go out for a walk, and she pulls out a cane. She said, okay. And I'm like, I don't know about this, Natasha. And she's like, Dawn, do you realize that when you walk, you look down? You watch your feet the whole time. Do you realize that? I didn't,
Mm,
I didn't realize that. She said, just
you
try.
weren't aware.
Just try it. Just try it. So she pulled out the cane and I start using it, and I'm looking up and I'm not worried about looking down because I'm feeling what's in front of me. And I moved so much faster that I was like, oh, this is a gift. This is an absolute gift. Oh,
Tell me about that experience. Tell me what it was, the difference emotionally, not just practically, but emotionally, of looking straight out as you're walking. I'm really fascinated by that.
oh, I never really thought about that. Um, I I felt so strong. I felt less like just maintaining and getting from point A to point B. And I didn't like I wasn't aware of the fact that I did it until I
Mhm.
knew, and now that I know, I know. Um, but just I felt free. I felt I felt I
Mm.
was looking up and taking everything in. And then of course you realize that everybody's staring at you, but that's their deal, not mine. Um, and just the speed with which I could walk, like I felt a little empowered. I'm at the point where I love my cane. So I'm a child of the
Oh,
80s. I loved Rick Springfield. I have named my cane Rick Stickfield. I call it Rick the Stick. Um,
that's great. That's
and
great.
I do freak out a
What?
little bit when it's not around. Like at the airport when they take it from you when you're going through security. Like
Mm.
I get a little like, get it back to me as soon as you can. So,
Yeah, I feel that way when I can't have my magnifier on me. It's the similar. Yeah. What has it been like as a cane user? You mentioned like other people are looking at you, but that's their deal. But the cane is an announcement to the
it
world.
is.
It is a form of disclosure, and in some ways that's very, very valuable and helpful, and in other ways that can be really difficult. What's your relationship with that disclosure of the cane?
Yeah, I think I got to a point, and I think the Stargarts conference actually really helped me with this. And given it was so early in all of this for me, I'm incredibly lucky. They were people were very open, and they like, of course, it was a community around this, so of course, let's not celebrate this, but let's be very open about it. But they separated us at one point, and you probably didn't see this when you called in. At one point, they separated us into groups where family members went and talked, adult Stargarts people were in a room, and the kid with Stargarts were in a room. And we all just talked with each other. And one of the things they asked us to share was, what's your best life hack? And
Mm.
and this stuck with me very vividly. Someone shared his life hack was very much owning this, like being open about it, because it takes some of the burden off of having to hide or having to be self-conscious. Like if you just allow yourself to get to the point where you're like, yeah, this is what I'm dealing with. And like now I'll tell anybody that listens, like, oh, you want to know what I have? Let's talk about it. I found that very liberating and very empowering because
Yeah,
it takes that burden off.
I've and I've never thought about that as a burden before, and so I'm really grateful that you shared it in that way. That when we feel compelled for whatever reason, and there are plenty of reasons to keep it private and to keep it to ourselves, like that's a choice, and everybody's perfectly free to make that choice, and I don't judge that at all. But there is an energy it takes to do that. It does not come for free. Like anytime you're holding something and keeping something that is true out from getting out, that they're like creating that barrier, creating that boundary takes some energy. And so for you, it was worth it to free up that boundary and just let it be and let it go wherever it needs to go out into the world.
Yeah.
And that felt better for you.
Yeah, my mom she asked several times, and I think this was part of her getting her head wrapped around it. Because honestly, I can't imagine what it's like for parents when their kids have an inherited retinal disease. Like, that's got to be a thing for them.
Mhm.
But she's asked several times, like, she's finally good with it. But what does the cane do for you? Help me understand, what is it that the cane does for you? And I finally, like, trying to explain it multiple times, I finally got to the point where here's the shortcut. It alerts everyone that I am different. So if I stop in the middle of the thing or start looking funny at something, like, nobody's going to question it, right? There's just peace in that. Like, I'm not going to trip anybody up. I mean, I might because they get in my way, but plus it makes people get out of my way. I love that. I love it. I love that people get out of my
People
way.
will part like the Red Sea when they see a cane.
I have a friend who hates the subway here in Toronto. She loves riding the subway with me. Because she's like, it's amazing. But those are absolutely the things that it does for me. Like, yeah, it is. It's very much a symbol of I'm different. I do things differently. And I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
Another cousin traveled with me. We were in Edinburgh, and he's not one who likes to call attention to himself. And he got a little freaked out at first. He's like, everyone is staring at you. And I was like, they are. I can see them.
They don't even know that I can see them.
And that's half the fun. Like, turn it into a game. And he finally got it. He finally, like, after a couple days, he saw, because he knows me without it. Like, he's like, oh yeah, you like Boogie. I'm like, I do.
That cane is liberating.
It is.
In many different ways. Yeah.
Plus, you get to pre-board the airplane first. You get your own special line at Customs and Immigration. It's fabulous.
Yeah. Yeah, I absolutely will pre-board a plane. We'll take that advantage in a heartbeat because I never have to gate check my bag.
Exactly. It makes a huge difference. So those were some.
In fact,
Oh, go ahead.
We'll even call the airline, and even if we didn't pay for seat selection, we'll get seat selection as part of the disability accommodation.
Oh yeah, or when
why not?
Or when you show up at the airport, if they see you with the cane, they're like, "Oh, Miss McAvoy, let's move you up closer." I'm like, okay.
Yeah, several times I've gotten upgraded seats because of disability accommodations.
Okay.
They don't advertise it, but it has happened on more than one occasion.
And do you know, and I don't know if this is just a Canadian thing or not, but the support traveler. So apparently in Canada, I'm not quite there yet, but apparently if your vision is bad enough or you are low vision enough and your doctor signs off on some form, when you travel, if you're traveling with a person, they can fly for free. Their ticket is covered.
I've never heard about that in the U.S., but it's worth looking into.
Yeah,
it might be. Yeah, no guarantees to the listeners of this podcast.
But ask, call the airline, ask for the.
It never hurts to ask.
Ask for the assistive desk, and just ask them.
Right.
Or maybe it's discounted. Yeah. I don't know.
Right. That's a good tip. We'll have to look into that. Maybe we'll do a whole episode on traveling.
Oh, that would be amazing. I love
good topic.
Travel.
Yeah. So before we wrap up, let me ask if there's any other areas of your life that you wanted to talk about, or anything we haven't covered that or messages you want to give to other people.
Yeah, I think it's the sharing that disclosure really works for me. I don't imagine that everybody has to make their own choice and everybody navigates things differently, but like, don't be ashamed like, there's absolutely nothing to be ashamed of. There's absolutely nothing to be self-conscious of. For me, right? This is my perspective on it. And
Right.
ask questions and ask for help and be vulnerable. I'm still working on that one. I hate it. Oh, I'm trying to remember some of the other things that I was thinking about. It just like there's a bit of acceptance that goes into this, right? It's that you can fight it as much as you want, but at the end of the day, it is what it is. And so my 2 cents for what they're worth, lean in, learn the things, talk to people about it. Ask for help. Ask for help.
Yeah. The thing that strikes me about all the stories you've told is how you have found a way to both and the scenario. You have both acknowledged and embrace and you don't recoil from the grief and the difficulty, and like you're fully in touch with that, and you find humor in it, and you find solutions, and you find practical hacks, and you find community, and you find silver linings, and one does not counteract the other.
Right.
It is both happening at the same time. It is both A and B, not A or B. So I think all the stories you shared today really illustrate that the importance of that and how possible that is. That we don't have to discount the difficulty and the grief that's part of it in order to find and craft and invent a really satisfying life. Like, both can happen at the same time. I think that's a great lesson. So thank you for sharing that with us.
Oh, I love the way you just kind of encapsulated all of it. And yes, a sense of humor is very important. And
It is. It is great.
It's fun. My favorite people are the people that know me well enough to know the first time I told them that they could joke with me about it, and I was okay with that. It's the people that don't know
Right.
me that well. I'm like, well, you don't know me. You can't.
I like to say you got to have something in the banks to make a withdrawal. Like you can't. Yeah, you need to know me before you go there. But once you do, yeah, let's have fun.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I
Exactly.
couldn't agree more.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think it's wonderful that
Great.
you're doing this. I would have
Oh,
loved.
I
I would
hope.
have loved to have found something like this when I was, diving in and trying to learn everything that I could. There's not a whole lot out there.
There's not. That's why this exists. Because we need resources, and so many of us tell the story of not having resources when we did need it. So hopefully this can fill some portion of that gap for some people. So thanks for being a part of it. I really appreciate it.
Oh, absolutely. It's been a pleasure.
Of course, every story of vision loss is distinct, and I think Dawn's story really highlights how valuable it can sometimes be to adopt a take-no-prisoners approach to adjusting to disability, while also taking the time to sit with the emotions we're feeling as we discover our new normal. I hope you found her story as uplifting as I did. Thanks for joining us for this episode of Insight Out. You're the reason this podcast exists, and we'd love to hear from you. You can leave us a voice message at speakpipe.com/insideoutpod. That's speakpipe.com/insightoutpod. INSIGHTOUTPOD. There, you can share your thoughts about today's conversation, suggest a topic for a future episode, or tell us about your experience living with vision loss. Again, that's speakpipe.com/insightoutpod. Insight Out is produced by Integral Mental Health Services, my private practice in Atlanta, Georgia, that offers psychotherapy for adults in Georgia and chronic illness and disability counseling nationwide. Visit us at integralmhs.com. And you can visit InsideOutPod.com to catch up on all the episodes. You can also find us on social media using the handle @InsideOutPod. I hope you'll join me for the next episode of Inside Out. Subscribe now in your favorite podcast app to stay connected. Thanks again for listening.